Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about the Epstein files. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I never really saw myself as a conspiracy theorist. You know, like when everybody would talk about like, the 13 powers of the world having this big child like sex ring operation going on in the background and like everybody's involved with it. I thought that was a bunch of bullshit. I was like, well, there's no way that everybody would be on board with that, right? You know, if that would ever come about, there would be like some kind of investigation, right? But shocker, shocker, apparently money and power like fucks with people. Because it seems like every conspiracy theory for the last 10 years was absolutely correct. The whole Pizzagate scandal, 100% true now. The whole idea that Hillary Clinton was sacrificing chickens to some god deity or something like that, that's real. The whole idea that there was like a child sex ring in our government was absolutely real. Even the fact that they were dismembering babies and eating them, the evidence really points that that was true. And there's a lot of points on the graph that says otherwise. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, you kind of sound like some kind of nut that needs his medication. And, it does sound like that. I'm not gonna lie to you. But it's all in the Epstein files. There's evidence, there's emails, there's documents all talking about this. We have the man himself, Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, talking about this. I'm going to try to make this video about as simple and to the facts as possible, because I do believe that the American people should know about this, and we 100% need to start talking about this a lot more. Because this ain't just some random, like, ICE are coming to steal illegals, or like some transphobia thing, or like people of color. This is all of us in the United States of America. Anybody who is a United States citizen should know about this and should be informed. And also angry. Let's look at the facts of what people are mostly talking about, and then we're gonna just get deeper and deeper and deeper. And yes, we're also gonna be talking about the crazy conspiracy parts, but let's go ahead and get started. Now, you might have saw this get blow up on like YouTube or Twitter, that at some point, Bill Gates was in the Epstein files, basically asking Jeffrey Epstein for like some medication for his STD that he contracted by a Russian hooker. Also, Mr. Bill Gates wanted Jeffrey Epstein to delete all emails about his STD. Now, it looks like this document is being sent by Bill Gates, but it's wrote by Jeffrey Epstein. And basically what little I read from this is it's basically Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates going through a little beef, a little bit of a friendship, drama. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read the part about the STD. To add insult to injury, you then implored me to please delete the emails regarding your STD. You requested that I provide you antibiotics that you can surreptitiously give to Melinda and the description of your penis. You also made it clear to me that I'm not to refer you to as blank, as that's another topic that must remain between the two of us. Now, the whole side of like the Russian hooker thing, I can understand why Bill Gates probably did it, right? Russian women look hot, alright? Let's not beat around the bush here. But Mr. Bill Gates, he made it 10 times more worse. Not only he didn't tell his wife, which I think that's like really unfaithful, but also the whole conspiracy to basically drug her without her knowledge is just, that's bad. That's really bad. I'm pretty sure that's illegal, honestly. But that's not the only thing that Mr. Gates was talking about. He was also trying to figure out how to get rid of poor people. Anytime, you can call blank home or make sure you have my cell blank Jeffrey. Cool, I'm excited. Also, I've been thinking a lot about that question that you asked Bill Gates. How do we get rid of poor people as a whole? And I have an answer/comment regarding that for you. When can I call you today to discuss this? Now, it looks like at some point in 2011, Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates together were talking about how to get rid of poor people. And I know a lot of people were asking, it's like, wait, you're gonna give me half of their money so like we won't all be like poor and like living in poverty? That's actually pretty awesome. But as much as I want to live in bliss, I don't think that's where they're heading. These are basically two people who have a lot of money, a lot of influence, and a lot of power. Their idea of getting rid of poor people is how we've been doing it for many, many of years. Basically putting people 6 feet under. And I know, guys, that's a wild hunch. But, I mean, there's only two ways to skin a cat here. You either give people half of your money and make them, less poor and, like, more rich. or you just put them 6 feet under. That's the only two ways I can think of how to resolve that. Either way you look at it, it's absolutely disgusting to think about that I bought an Xbox for this guy, and now he's turning around trying to figure out how to get rid of poor people. Even knowing my dad scrounged up the money to give me an Xbox to make his kid happy, has been conspiring against me since 2011. You absolute rat.
No, the apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. Uh, that email was never sent. The
Where's the
email
proof?
is, false.
I didn't do it, he did it. Here's the proof. Shows no proof, just trust me, bro. Where's the proof?
So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that. It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Oh, guys, I accidentally forgot something about Bill Gates. It's something small. You probably won't care. But him and Jeffrey Epstein were talking about making a artificial pandemic, and this little nugget of information's been out since 2017. It really makes you think that COVID-19 wasn't really a fluke accident, bad luck, right? Maybe it just turned out to be some manufacturing work by a bunch of billionaires. Who knows? The only proof we got is from Jeffrey Epstein himself. There's no other conflicting evidence that says otherwise. So what are we supposed to believe? Some billionaire who just denies, or what the FBI collected through Jeffrey Epstein's documents and emails. I think that's enough of Bill Gates. Let's go to another topic. Does anybody remember what happened with Pizzagate? Just to put it to you simply, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about. Way back in 2016, there was a email leak by the Democratic National Committee. Now, you would think that you would just, find just some random, boring crap on it. Come to find out, there was a lot of really oddly specific details about these emails. And some of these emails were just very odd. A lot of these emails reference a lot of pizza, pasta, cheese, and hot dogs. And sometimes they were also oddly worded. Like, one of the emails pretty much says if Obama can bring $65,000 worth of hot dogs. Which doesn't sound criminal, but it's very unusual. After just so much digging in these emails, people actually were managed to find out the pizza restaurant that they were talking about, which was Comic Ping Pong, which is somewhere in Washington, D.C. After people started digging around at this restaurant, there was a lot of things that just didn't make sense. Like, for example, the pizza owner being ranked 50 in the most powerful people in Washington. And the pizza owner that had people in his circle had occult themes, was playing around with fake blood and eyes and stuff like that. Then on top of that, there was other artists that he knew that were depicting children in just very disturbing ways. Just to give you an idea, children just taped to tables, children in shallow waters, or just children looking like mannequins. Just some very questionable art. Inside of this pizza restaurant, they would have on the walls these humanoid monster creatures or some shit, like something out of the Evil Dead or something. Music talking about babies and violence. Like I said, this is weird because they would always do pizza parties for kids. This pizza restaurant was more edgy than taking your kid to a Slipknot concert. Hell, when you put it side by side, it makes Slipknot look like a Toys for Tots, ages for 3 or 4. But anyway, when people pointed it out, they basically shrugged it off as just, edgy art. This would be like Chuck E. Cheese having an adults only section. It makes you wonder, why is that there to begin with? Because this is a place for kids, right? It also didn't help that all around this pizza joint had just trafficking signals that the FBI calls this is what predators use to basically say, hey, this is what I'm into. Without saying it, keeping it low key, Like, for example, hot dog means boy, pasta means little boy, walnut means children of color, pizza means girl. There's also symbols that tell you which gender you like. And to basically stop being around the bush about it, it's basically a code word for pedophiles, safe words that you could say to kind of basically tell someone your interest. I guess safe words if you want to call it like that. But this is something that the FBI has already figured out and noticed, and that's the whole reason I know about it. And you're welcome, I just ruined pizza for you. Don't worry, I ruined ruined it for myself when I learned about this too. So, nobody wins in this in this conversation. But also another nugget of this information was this pizza joint had a basement, and but the owner said there wasn't a basement in that store, but the floor planning and like just the way everything's built says otherwise. So one day a guy came in with a gun and basically wanted to investigate if there was a basement. And the police report said there wasn't a basement, and it seemed like they were kind of just shutting it up instead of like investigating what happened. It's almost like the police were just looking the other way. And that's pretty much the whole story about Pizzagate. People had more questions than answers. And the police officers and the FBI basically said everybody to move along, there's nothing to see here, it's a huge nothing burger. Until now. Let's see about the Epstein files about all this. You mean radiating a soft glow with the look of bliss and excitement? Yeah, that's the pizza. She looks pregnant. What in the actual fuck am I reading? Here's another paper. Are you sure this might not be a Jim Jones Kool-Aid event? T-Cool, please eat my slice. Who all is in the Austin police office today? Who is going to want pizza? We only have one slice, and we need to know how thinly to slice it. Now, what do they mean by thinly slicing it? Because it seems like what we're learning from Jeffrey Epstein is this is definitely not pizza. Now, either that or pizza can get pregnant, which I'm sorry to say it, I don't think that's possible. Now, the next thing I'm bound to show you is very disturbing. So, yeah, this one's going to be a wild ride. Buckle up for this one. Now, this one is aimed at George Bush the First. Thanks, blank. I didn't realize Bush raped him too. Okay. While on his yacht, he witnessed African American males having sex with a white blonde female. All her wounds were bleeding during intercourse. He was a victim of a type of ritualistic sacrifice in which his feet were cut with a scimitar, but left no scarring. On the yacht, he witnessed babies being dismembered, their intestines removed, and individuals eating the feces from these intestines. He was also raped by George Bush the First. What the fuck? Here's one from Jeffy from 2009. Where are you? Are you okay? I love the torture video. I'm really starting to think that this whole child sex ring kind of like conspiracy, they're torturing people and all this stuff was actually kind of real. And honestly, that's more bizarre than actually meeting aliens. There's also an email by Hillary Clinton, or the Clintons, basically saying, with fingers crossed, the rabbit's foot's out of the box in the attic, I will be sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Monarch. Doing a little bit of research, basically what Monarch is basically a deity that's associated with child sacrifice. And for a minute there I was like, well, okay, that's kind of weird, but at least it's a chicken, right? And that's when it slapped into me like a frying pan. When I was looking up all the symbol things for when I was talking about predators, there was one thing that stood out. I've been using this graph to basically learn these codes, and guess which one is chicken? Young boy. Whether you want to believe this or not, I'm gonna be honest with you, I hardly believe it myself, but isn't it kind of weird that stuff like this just connects? Same thing with Jeffrey Epstein's bank account. His account name is Baal, which if we go back to the Monarch, Baal meaning lord or owner in the Northwest Semitic languages was a potent ancient candidate and a Semitic deity of storms, fertility, and architecture. But you know what's another crazy thing about it? That religion that I was just now talking about comes from Canaanite regions, which is modern day Israel and Palestine. Guess what color that Jeffrey Epstein's temple is? Blue and white. So, if everything is true, and this is not some like crazy coincidence, which I really don't think so with all the lines connected into it, you basically got a bunch of billionaires and a bunch of people of power basically like believing in this 6,000-year-old fucking deity, and they're basically sacrificing like kids and shit. Huh. This was definitely not on my bingo card of 2026. Hell, I thought on my bingo card that I was gonna be like a space cowboy wrangling up people on the moon. And every year, I'm disappointed. A bunch of crazy nuts in our government who think this way. Bro, we literally got like sacrifices and just child sex trafficking in our government before GTA 6. That is absolutely insane. And mind you, Jeffrey Epstein's doing all this shit and also has time to play video games because he got banned off of Xbox. Apparently, he got banned for harassment, threats, and slash or abuse. This guy was saying some hard R's in a Call of Duty match. I already know it. It happens to every Call of Duty player. Bro, that's why my microphone ain't connected to Call of Duty. If I get up on the mic, I'm one PewDiePie bridge clip away from getting banned. Basically, Jeffrey Epstein was a huge gamer, apparently. He played games like World of Warcraft, Fortnite, Minecraft, Call of Duty. Now, I don't know if he actually played Call of Duty, but he's actually giving Bobby Kotick some advice on microtransactions, for the youngsters out there, who want, virtual items. And I'm not fucking with you. This is actually in the Epstein files, by the way. So, let me explain to you how nutty this is. Not only this guy's raping people on his island, this guy's got presidents coming over, he's got people from other countries coming over, he's got Elon Musk coming over, he's got Mark Zuckerberg coming over. All of them are getting advice from Jeffrey Epstein and might be, partaking in this rape island, whatever. Not only that, but this motherfucker still has time to play video games in between flying to like other parts. This guy doesn't sleep. The reason he's got the shit grin on his face is because when he moves so fast, the skin on his face burns up and turns into leather. He's stuck smiling. This guy's got an IV stuck to his arm and it's got 3 liquids in it. Code Red Mountain Dew, Gatorade Code Blue, and Monster Energy Drink just to keep up with his libido. And bro, don't get me started on what he does to get up. Then, on top of that, he was basically calling up these clone companies, seeing if he could start making his baby farm. Not only this guy was a monster, but he was the Energizer Bunny, Sonic the Hedgehog, and the Flash mixed into a fucking blender. Now it comes to my conclusion. What do I think about all this? Everything that is presented on the table as of right now, there is a lot of evidence of emails and documents talking about the most depraved shit. But even though we have the Epstein files and we have documents and emails, it still doesn't really tell the truth. It blurs the line between what's right and what's not. It's not like we have like video or picture proof of this happening, right? But there's so many lines pointing to so many things and they're lining up so perfectly, I really can't rule this out of being fake. There should have been an investigation by the FBI and the government to see what was going on. And it's kind of odd there hasn't been. Either one or two things is happening. Either we're getting the whole truth, or we're getting half of the truth, and some of it is fabricated. Like I said, there's some things that just connect way too perfectly to not be true. And there's some things in here where I feel like I need a lot more proof until I start believing in this. And you're probably saying, well, why do you think it's half true and half not? Let me tell you a story. I work in basically a factory all day. And one of the rules that we have now, you can't wear earbuds to play music while you're working. They won't allow you to do it. Now, one of the ways I got around this was basically using factory earplugs that, they have Bluetooth so you can listen to music in them, but they look like, earbuds, right? So I get a little bit cocky, and so I start wearing them around the whole entire factory. But apparently, one of the people on the factory floor noticed that I was using Bluetooth earbuds. And so the manager asked me, am I wearing Bluetooth earbuds? And of course I don't want to get wrote up, because that's usually where I make all my money. And of course I want to have a good standing record. But there's really no compromise into not wearing my earbuds. So I say, nope, these are not Bluetooth earbuds. These are just regular factory earbuds that are just really fancy. And one of the things I did to convince them on that was I took my earbuds off, covered the buttons, and showed him that there was basically no buttons on it. So I had where the buttons you touch from it, I had it covered up. And he asked me one more time, are you sure these are not Bluetooth earbuds? And I said yes. And still to this day, I am still wearing those same fucking earbuds. I was never wrote up. No one did care. The only thing that changed was I stopped using my earbuds on the floor because I didn't want to get caught again. Right? But I think that honestly showed me how easy it is to deceive people. And there's really only a couple of variables that you have to follow. There's only 3. Act normal, show the proof, and just hope like hell he's too tired to not actually look into it. They don't want you to look at the Epstein files. They try to do every little thing to make it so inconvenient that you mostly click out and watch YouTube. This ain't like Twitter, where like once you're done seeing like one page, you can click an arrow and it swipes to another thing. No, you have to manually back out and click on it to click on the next page. And honestly, that kind of reminds me of when I took my headset off and I hide everything under my thumb. They do that shit on purpose, so you're not motivated to actually go to fucking their website to look up the Epstein list. And yes, they do have a search bar where you can basically look up the data sets, but that's after someone has just dug through all of it and been like, oh wait, I found something of interest, right? I don't think we would have known half of the stuff from the Epstein list if we didn't have the internet. I am 100% convinced on that, by the way. They don't want you to know so much that they make their website so inconvenient that you would rather go watch YouTube than look at the Epstein files. I'm gonna give you two of my opinions. I'm gonna go off the opinion that most of this stuff is fake, but some of it's true. And I'm gonna go off of, if everything is true, what is my opinions on what we need to do next. Firstly, never stop talking about this. Never stop talking about the Epstein files. Never stop talking about Epstein's. Never stop talking about Pizzagate. Keep talking about it until it gets resolved, until everybody that was involved, that have absolute proof that they were doing some nefarious shit in there, get arrested and trialed. And if it was absolutely true that they were sacrificing people and killing people and all this crazy stuff that was coming out, right? And there's concrete proof, evidence, everything. They admitted, whatever it takes. I think 100% they deserve the death penalty. However you like to cut it, you are not above the law. And I really hope that my country still knows the word justice for all. But what's realistically going to happen is after a couple months, people are going to get tired, and then everybody's going to stop talking about it. And then something crazy is going to happen again, and then that's going to blow up for a couple of days, and then it's just going to be the same stuff, rinse and repeat. But what I think is going to happen is it's going to go to Congress. They're going to be like, oh, it's insufficient evidence, and then everybody's going to get released, and that's pretty much it. But we'll find out. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, skiddly boppity boop. I'm out.